Hi, it's Jonathan Fitzgordon, the creator of Core Walking and the SOAS Release Party. And I would like to tell you a little bit about how I got here and why I'm teaching people how to walk. When I started teaching people how to walk, people thought I was a little crazy. But it turns out nobody knows how to walk, even though we all think we know how to walk. I walk, therefore I walk correctly. But there is a real difference between walking and walking correctly. But the journey that got me here started with a yoga practice. I started doing yoga when I was pretty late, and I was 32 years old when I started, but I did it when I was a little kid. My mom took me to a yoga class, and I was pretty natural at it because my hips are really open, I have very loose joints, and I bend my fingers back. It's not really a problem, never has been. I can put my feet behind my head. So I came to yoga at 32, and it wasn't that I had never exercised. I had an active childhood, and at the time, right before, the story I tell of why I started doing yoga is I was rollerblading over the Brooklyn Bridge, which I used to love to do, and I saw a friend of mine up at the top of the bridge on his bike, and I raced after him, and I caught up to him, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" We were talking, and I said, "Wow, you look really good." And he said, "I'm doing yoga." I said, I'll be there tomorrow. I am really psyched. It just made sense to me. So I showed up in that yoga class, and I was hooked. I started going this is 1995. I started going 6 days a week, every day for 90 minutes to 2 hours. And I was living in Brooklyn and rollerblading into the city or biking into the city and then doing all this yoga. So I was in really good shape. And for the first time in my life, it was just an amazing, amazing feeling. Lots of aches and pains that I had. I always had sore, tight necks and headache stuff, and that all just went away from my yoga practice. But something else started to happen, which is my knees started to hurt. And it took a long time, about 2 years, 2.5 years in. I was doing some pretty advanced yoga and having a great time of it, but my knees started to hurt. And then, to be honest, the first injury wasn't a yoga injury. I was playing baseball, and when we tear our meniscus, when we hurt our knee, it's usually a plant and twist injury, which is why it's so common in sports. So I was playing baseball, and I was playing third base, and I went to field the ground ball, and when I went to twist back to throw the ball to first, my foot stayed, and my knee went, and I heard a pop and kind of exploded, and that was my first knee problem, and the yoga wasn't helping it, and I ended up having a knee surgery. And the problem with that was I wasn't doing very much. I went to physical therapy, but I wasn't learning about my body and how it worked, and I ended up hurting the other knee in the process of compensating for the first knee, and I wasn't even sure what was going on, but I knew that I ended up with a knee surgery on my second knee. That was for another injury where it was a pop in my knee. Long story short, a year and a half of physical therapy and a third surgery later, I was back on the yoga mat, ready to go at it again, when a teacher asked me a question that just changed my life. And that question was, what are you doing to prevent a fourth surgery? It was an unbelievable experience, because it was really like that light bulb over the head moment where all of a sudden I realized I am doing nothing to prevent a fourth surgery. I'm going to end up having a fourth surgery because I have hurt my knees now over and over again. I had 3 surgeries, been back and forth to physical therapy, and here I was again about to do the same thing that would have landed me back in pain. And that was just my wake-up call. And I started to learn about anatomy, and I started to take my yoga practice differently. I actually became a yoga teacher in response to this, and over time, I was still in love with yoga. So what I realized was, wow, I want to figure out how do I help people take yoga off the mat into their daily life. And what I came up with was walking. And actually what I started with was standing. To be honest, standing might be harder to teach than walking, because moving is much easier to change than stillness. So I started to look at walking. And I really did. I wanted to take yoga off the mat and bring it into people's lives 24/7. And then what I started to look at was, how are my yoga students moving in yoga? I used to be of the belief that people came to exercise, they came to yoga to change their patterns and improve their body and their movement patterns. And what I realized soon was that's not what happens. People come to yoga and they want to reinforce the patterns that they bring into the room. And that gets into some very interesting psychological or emotional things about change. We really don't like change. We resist change at all costs. And that was another one of these moments of eureka moments that just changed the way I look at the body and looked at exercise, and it reinforced my desire to teach people to walk, because what I'm teaching in the walking program, the core walking program, is neuromuscular repatterning through repetition. You can train people to do what you want. You're adapting your patterns every day. So like if you hurt your ankle and you limp with your foot turned out, that's a compensation that you make that's good. And then when you're finished healing, you want to change that compensation back. Very often we don't change, and we end up with these compensatory patterns all through life. So what I realized was, if I can teach people to walk one step at a time, 1 foot forward, 1 foot after another, that sort of patterning, if it's correct patterning, will start to change the body and even change the mind. When we walk correctly, the body is a self-healing machine. Every step we take is supposed to be a spinal twist, with the left and right side of the body alternate. We get a twist, we get a core exercise. That is brain work. That is working, left side and right side of the brain in opposition. Really beautiful stuff. Guess what? When we don't walk correctly, we're not employing any of those patterns. So I took a step back. I said, I don't want any more pain. I don't want any more knee pain. No more surgeries. I taught myself how to walk in a new way. I had help from some really great teachers. I taught myself how to walk in a new way, and here I am 12 years later. My yoga is just as advanced as it ever was. I no longer have any knee pain or back pain. I get injured. I have no problem getting injured, because now I heal. So if I get injured, if I sprain my ankle, which I did last winter, it's not a big problem for me, because I know as long as I'm walking correctly, I'm going to heal well. I'm not looking to live a life where I don't do anything I want to do. Whatever exercise I want, whatever activity I want, I know I can do it because I have the means to heal simply by moving correctly. So it has been an amazing journey to get to this point where 10 years later I am pain-free, and I am teaching people to walk and helping them live a pain-free life. It has been a blessing and just an honor to help the people that I've helped. So core walking has changed my life, and I really hope that you check it out, and maybe it can change your life too.